HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Having It All, a podcast that explores the question, can we really have it all in life? My name is Matthew Bivens, and I believe that having it all means viewing life through a lens of abundance and love. You see, it's not about having anything, but instead about how we experience ourselves, other people, and life itself. In this podcast, my guests and I explore what having it all and creating your ideal life actually look like. We talk about the joy and contentment when you feel like you have it all, however it is that you define it. And we also talk about the profound and sometimes uncomfortable situations that you frequently must go through in order to create that ideal life. My goal with this podcast is that you walk away from each episode with new lessons that you can apply to your life, as well as real, raw stories of what having it all can look like. I want to spark the flame in your mind that asks, what does it look like to have it all in my life? So, with that, join me in having it all. How are you showing up in life as a leader? In this conversation, I'm talking with Amy Balog on the topic that has ignited her passion, what she calls leading from center. Amy has made a career out of teaching folks how to become more authentic and influential leaders. And although she serves business leaders in her work, the principles and insights that she shares with me can be applied to all of us. Why? Because we are all leaders in some way in our lives, whether that's at home, at the office, in our community, or even in our families. So, with that, let's get into it. Today, I am speaking with Amy Balog. Amy is an organizational and leadership consultant, coach, speaker, and writer. Before launching her company, Connection Point, Amy spent 17 years working in the information technology and management consulting industry, selling complex project services and providing delivery oversight. Amy has worked with CEOs to frontline managers in Fortune 500 companies. From this work, Amy authored in-depth case studies outlining the behind-the-scenes leadership and engagement challenges that blocked or empowered change. Amy is originally from Youngstown, Ohio, and has lived in Atlanta for over 20 years. She lives in the beautiful suburb of Dunwoody with her husband, Chad, and 2 old cats that rule the house. Now, I am extra excited for this interview with Amy because Amy and I are friends. We've known each other for a number of years now, and I've had the supreme pleasure of experiencing Amy's work, which I know to be incredibly transformational. So, with that, I want to welcome Amy Balog to the show. Amy, how are you being today?
Well, I'm being in my center. How about that? That's where I am today.
Yeah, I love it.
It's an honor to be with you, Matthew. You've got a beautiful energy. I recognized it the first time we met, and then when we worked that half day together, I was impressed with how deep you could go and make and articulate so much meaning in your life. It was a wonderful day. It was an absolutely wonderful day. So I'm happy to be on the show.
Wow. Thank you for, man, you're making me blush over here. Thank you for that. That was an awesome intro for me. Thank you. And I just realized I didn't mention your whole name. I just said Amy. Your name is Amy Balog, and your business is Connection Point. So if those listening are like, you only said her first name. Well, now I said the full thing. Amy Balog. So, Amy, you do some pretty heavy work with businesses and businesses and organizations. You're not just helping them improve those external factors in their business. You're really getting into the messy stuff of working on who they are being as people. So can you briefly talk to me about the work that you do and how you got into it?
Well, the work that I do is I help people lead from their center, and that's actually purpose, really, I feel, for my life. And it organically grew in me, actually. It's sometimes, Matthew, our purpose, we don't have to go find it. Sometimes our purpose finds us. And in meetings from over 20 years ago, I watched people that were incredibly smart in these rooms, in these companies, consultant teams that I would bring in, and client teams, and I was impressed with everybody in the room. And there wasn't an issue with how smart everybody was. It was just the courage that everyone had to have to lead from a deeper part of themselves with higher intention, to have more courageous conversations, greater candor, support each other more, and see each other not just through what they were doing in their jobs, but through their talent. I was recognizing all those things were potentially gaps. And I was fascinated with that years ago in my old career when I was leading sales and doing sales in the consulting and, project industry. And I case studied it. It was fascinating to me. And there wasn't a lot written on it back then. There was only like Stephen Covey and things like that. But I just became a student of it, and a student of this desire that leaders and organizations can be very intentional about the environment they create to get the results they want. And so essentially that is what really the seed planted in me. And then I think your other part of the question was how I got into what I'm doing today. Was that correct? Okay. So, well, it was a little bit of a perfect storm. When when the industry I was in, which was the consulting industry, was going through a bit of a crisis in 2007, 2008, as so was most of the country, with a financial meltdown. I was with a firm, and they decided that they were going to change directions, and people were going to we were making decisions. And I could have remained, but I decided to maybe look elsewhere. And I was in an interview with another large global company, kind of going back to some earlier footprint in my career. And I'm in the middle of the interview, Matthew, and I just heard myself talking to myself, and I said, what am I doing here? It was one of those kind of moments of, why am I doing this? And
wow.
I looked at the interview, and I don't think I actually heard the guy's question. And he just looked at me for a minute, and I said to him, I'm sorry. I'm wasting your time. I shouldn't be here. And it was kind of a bizarre but amazing watershed moment right in the middle of an interview. And the funny thing about it is I ended up just coming clean with him and saying, I don't think I want to do any of this anymore. And we ended up having this transition from having this very formal conversation to almost like a life conversation right there. And I almost think I talked him out of his own job.
That's real.
But I went home and I freaked out my husband and said, I don't know what I want to do precisely, but I know it's in the field of helping organizations and leaders transform and whatever words I want to put into it. But I was 42 years old at the time and the economy was collapsing. But I said, I don't think there's any other time in my life, any other window or door to walk through, but just do it now. And I'm willing to put it all on the line to do it. So that's how it all started. And I really had to examine my own intentions before I could help anybody else examine theirs. And so I spent a year, I turned one of my rooms in my house into a war room. And I went out to all my business network and said, I'm going to do this and I'll just work for free, just to see what this is all about and shape this. And that's how it all got started in 2008.
HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Wow, that's amazing. So there was a conversation where you just found the courage to just be open and honest with not only yourself, but the person you were sitting in front of. Is that something that you've done in the past? Is that a pattern that you've had of sort of that self-reflection and then making those bold decisions?
I don't know if it was the pattern I had early in my career. I think the pattern early in my career was to try to do what was best in those environments. I think my entire life I've always been self-reflective, yet I don't think I always let that come out. So you can call it a midlife crisis. I don't really frame it as that at all. I think as we get older, we become more into who we really, really want to be, and that drum beats a little bit louder every year. And I think I was just gotten to a point where I wanted to heed the call. And I had a unique opportunity where I could see that I could take the risk financially, personally, and I could, I knew what trade-offs I was willing to make. They were very clear to me. And I realized I was in a window of time in my life that the door was from the world circumstances, it never looked good, but from the circumstances inside myself, it looked right. And sometimes when we're going to take risks in life, it's never going to feel perfect at the time that you do it. Yeah. So I don't know if but the courage, I don't know. I can't think of it. I just think it was something that was so pronounced in me, it just had to get done. I don't know if that's the best way you can explain it sometimes.
I think that anyone out there who has faced that moment of just feeling torn and you feel pulled in one direction, but the fear is there. And if you've plucked up the courage to actually do it, they absolutely get what you just shared. They get it because it does feel like that, you know, you're being called to something, yet what you've been doing for a number of years or your entire life is taking you in one direction, but your calling is pulling in you another direction.
That's right. And to just add on to that, I think when it did really hit me, when that calling hit me, I realized everything wasn't set up perfectly in my life at the time, but it was set up enough to go ahead and walk down that road. And I never regretted it.
Mm. So talk to me about what it means to lead from center, not from circumstances.
Well, when I first opened my leadership practice, one of the very first things I got certified in was emotional intelligence. And that's a big field. And if anyone who's listening is a purveyor of leadership books and behavioral books, emotional intelligence is a pretty well-known term, and it's been around since the 90s when Daniel Goleman coined it. And I thought, wow, this would be great, because I felt that was sort of the mindset that was missing, you know, the mindset and application that was missing in a lot of the meetings I was watching over the years. And there should be a way to practically digest it. But what I learned when I started my practice is, if you think about it, I started my practice in 2008. I've never been running my own work, my own practice in a truly healthy economy. There was always crisis. And I was meeting these leaders who were in the succession line for these companies, completely burned out. I mean, they're at such a high compression point for change in these companies. And many still are today. They're trying to raise their families, and they're trying to work extremely hard, and they feel like they can't give enough to anyone, and they feel like they don't always get to have the impact on the things that matter the most, either at work or at home, and they're running pretty hard, and in a sense kind of losing the sense of themselves in the process. And so if you go and say, okay, I want to help with some emotional intelligence skills, what I also learned that had to precede that was to help them find themselves again in a way, and not in a deep psychological analysis way. We're talking about just helping people understand the why that's inside of them. And to understand that they have more possibility inside of them than they realize. They have bigger options inside of them, and they don't have to be everything to everybody, and they don't have to say yes to so many things, and they don't have to be perfect, and they just have to know themselves in a way that has great self-compassion attached to it and great self-awareness, and they can be a better leader and pick their moments more wisely. So it's sort of it's a shift from in understanding the environment in yourself well enough to know how to give back to the environment that's maybe very chaotic around you. So I didn't disband any emotional intelligence training that I got. I kept that with me, but I made a nuanced but powerful shift in saying, okay, my leaders have to understand, and so did I. And I had to take my own medicine. That what is your center? And your center is the place of your greatest possibility inside of yourself, where you can understand the facets, or I call them specifically clarifiers, of your why. And when you and I worked together, Matthew, that half day, we got to pretty deep, some good aspects of that.
Yeah.
And it's a couple of things. When you know your center, you really know your value system extremely well. You talk about carrying that picture of your value cards around. There's a lot of ways to articulate and get to what your values are. And I help my clients do that in a number of ways. You experienced a specific way when we were together in that day. But once you know your values, typically you know your values sort of set up your boundaries in your life, and that if someone truly values family, for instance, and they're not having space at all in their life for family, then that's going to create a pressure. That means that there's a boundary you haven't honored. Another way of another clarifier, for example, is the lessons we've learned in life is they speak to us all the time, consciously, unconsciously. We take the key lessons forward. And sometimes when I bring leaders into a team environment and we talk about the lessons as you experienced, I think that day we did that, was, oh, that's why you do that, because you learned that lesson 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You're still using it today. Sometimes leaders will have lessons, and I've seen this commonly. They've learned something and they learned it so intensely that they do the opposite thing for the rest of their life. And so just to understand how our lessons speak to us. Another piece of our center is what drives and motivates us. And there's instruments out there. There's so many ways to get to that are very practical and powerful, because the things that drive us aren't necessarily defined by a job per se. So I have a lot of folks I work with that are heavily driven by impact, and they want to make impact. And so every time they go into a job, they're thinking about impact. We just need to get a language around what really drives us. That is just the thing we like to do when we walk in. And the two last ones that I see in the clarifiers are skills, which is how are we using our skills or capabilities? Are our capabilities using us? Because sometimes you can have a skill and that becomes your identity. It doesn't need to be. And then we do a lot of great work with that. And then the last piece that's important is to understand is how you're giving yourself back. Because one of the best quotes, I've followed Linda Hill, who is a writer and teaches leadership development at Harvard. And she says, leaders need to understand that how people experience themselves when you're with you is often leadership right there. So
wow.
it's a clarifier. It's a clarifier I call dials, which is knowing that when you're with someone, there's this place you want to be where you absolutely want to be who you are, but at the same time, you want to give value back in that moment, and you can be mindful in the moment of what you're dialing up and dialing down in yourself to give back to that person. It's very powerful and it's very teachable. So all of that together, I know that's a lot, but in a very almost programmatic, systematic way, inspirational way, I created a way for leaders to actually get their arms around what their center is. And that level of self-awareness and language about yourself allows you to incredibly self-regulate and pick your moments. And you become more aware of the environment inside of yourself that is the place where you can gain great clarity, calmness, and conviction. And you're not as nearly impacted by the environment around you.
Wow. That is a lot, but you know what's awesome? This is a podcast, so people can just rewind a few minutes and listen to it again.
Well, it is, because it's the whole journey of that piece, but it's where it all begins. And once people have that, though, it's transformative. It is. It's great, because you realize that you can work much wider base in yourself. You have much more capacity for your leadership than you might have imagined.
And you know what I love about what you just shared and the work that you do is that you work with business leaders. However, I think everything that you shared applies to all people, whether or not you're a business leader, a CEO, a parent, a youth minister, no matter what your role is, it can apply because you are leading in some way.
That's correct.
You might be the leader of your business. You might be the leader of your family. Maybe you're the leader of your friends, the leader of your community. And at the very least, you are the leader of yourself.
That's true.
So, the way that you are showing up within yourself and for yourself, as like you said, it impacts other people. So if some people listening were like, okay, those are great lessons, but those are just for business leaders. No, not at all. What you are sharing are for the lessons you are sharing are for everybody.
That's correct. That is absolutely true. That's absolutely true, because what we have to give back to ourselves richly to be able to give back to others richly.
Yes. Wow. I love that. So in the context of this show, having it all means having an abundant, loving life. I'm curious, Amy, what does having it all mean to you?
I think where that begins is where I have learned having it all begins is having a wealth of self-compassion. Because life can be it's going to be up and down. We're going to have things in life we can build momentum and get where we want to go. At the same time, as we all know, life happens to us. Things happen we didn't plan. We can go through hardships. And we have to be able to also step out into arenas, as Brene Brown calls them in her work. I love her word, arena. To make change in our life, we have to take some risks. And self-compassion, you have a wealth of self-compassion. It's a place where you can forgive yourself. You can accept that you can't control everything. You can learn. It's been well researched that self-compassion has a lot to do with our presence. We can have peace in our own skin. So I think that's the base of having an abundant life. It really begins with that, because from there you're better able to evolve. I see that with my clients who gain deeper self-compassion for themselves. They're better able to not feel so defensive, because unless people are defining who they are, they're beginning to understand that it's okay who they are. They're enough. As one of my clients told me, I'm enough.
Yeah.
And from that place, though, interestingly, you can give back more. It's a good place to be. So that's what I consider an abundant life right there.
I love examples. Would you be able to give us an example of what self-compassion has looked like for you personally? So maybe an area in your life where you haven't always been as compassionate, and therefore you're working on your own self-compassion.
Well, I think in starting the work I did in 2008, I really did a pretty hard switch. I didn't come up from a traditional career trajectory to go into this work, Matthew. And so it's a little daunting. I had to go out and spend $20,000 on certifications and do all kinds of different things. And I was doing a lot of new things that I hadn't done exactly in that form or in any deliberate way at all in my past career. So I learned something that my clients actually ended up teaching me, because when we go into something new and we're throwing ourselves out in a scary new arena where we're unproven and we don't necessarily walk in with the credentials, we might be asking the question, well, how well will I perform? How good am I going to perform? And that question can sometimes set us up, and it did for me at times, to be less self-compassionate. So if I did a meeting, a training, or facilitated or worked on something and it didn't quite go off as I expected, we can all be really hard. I knew there were times I was definitely hard on myself. Everybody can be. And you're trying something new. So, and I would courageously call my client up and say, okay, what did you think of that?
Oh, you'd ask for feedback.
Yeah, ask for feedback. And It's really hard, but feedback, I think, is huge. And if I had the privilege of working with a client that facilitates live feedback. They don't even do paper 360s. People sit down. And it's been such a gift to me, because feedback is so powerful, but it takes such an enormous amount of courage.
Yes.
And so, but where that took me, my clients taught me this, is the question moves from how well will I perform to when you really start to grow your self-compassion and accept that you're learning and be okay with that and be open about that with people and allow their feedback to help shape your journey. The question changed to how big can I serve? And that is where it tends to go. That's where it tends to go. And I think that answered your question, but
yeah, it did. And that's interesting.
That's how self-compassion looks.
Say it again.
That's how self-compassion tends to evolve a bit for us, I believe.
Yeah. And what you shared, it started with a question that was really about, the ego, like
Yes.
how well can I perform? So you're comparing yourself to something else. And so it's your ego thing, it's your ego kind of measuring it up. But through what you shared, it shifts and it goes from an internal thing to an external thing. How much or how big, how grand can I give back? Mm-hmm. And I think that's an incredibly powerful shift in frame of mind, because I personally believe that that idea of that giver's gain, right? Like you give and give and give, and the universe will give back to you. And so that's awesome. That's a powerful shift.
And I would say my clients taught me that.
Ah, that's awesome. So you're learning from your clients. Your clients have hired you to probably teach them something, but you're also there being a student as well as a teacher.
We're sojourners together.
Yeah. Amazing.
There's a million things we have to do today, and worrying doesn't need to be one of them. That's why 1 in 9 families use Life 360 for safety, to connect to the people that matter most. Join today and get premium features that keep your family protected, with real-time location updates, crash detection, and 24/7 roadside assistance. Because let's face it, you're more than just your to-do list. You're a family. So let's live Life 360. Download for free today.
Why don't more infant formula companies use organic, grass-fed whole milk instead of skim? Why don't more infant formula companies use the latest breast milk science? Why don't more infant formula companies run their own clinical trials? Why don't more infant formula companies use more of the proteins found in breast milk? Why don't more infant formula companies have their own factories instead of outsourcing their manufacturing? We wondered the same thing. So we made ByHeart, a better formula for formula. Learn more at byheart.com.
So earlier you mentioned a guy, an author, a man, Stephen Covey, who is somebody that I'm a huge fan of. I've read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People multiple times. And I am all about habits. I'm all about forming healthy, empowering habits and really examining habits. So with you, Amy, what are some of the habits of health and self-love that you practice regularly?
You hit on a really big thing that it's huge to demonstrate something that you give back yourself, and it's embedded in your daily life. And especially now that I'm working with clients, and I never want them to work beyond their capacity to a point of burnout or exhaustion. It's just not the right thing to do. And so my habits, simple things, is down to I drink matcha green tea a couple times a day. I gave up coffee and the big thick. I've had one of my friends say it tastes like you're drinking grass, but I love it. I do. I've got quite a taste for it. Tivana's matcha green tea, as simple as that sounds, but I always have to have my afternoon matcha green tea. I travel with it and everything. But that's part of that. I also I try to do this shutdown process at the end of the day, where I start shutting myself down. I allow myself a little ritual to let go of the day. Spend time with those 2 old cats that talked about in the beginning of the podcast.
Yes.
And I kind of just spend some time with the house. I shut my room down, the office and things. Just everything gets kind of there's a shutdown process, and whatever that shutdown process is very powerful for me. And I found that it's sort of a way of saying goodbye to that day. I wake up every morning, and I say to myself, all I have is today and eternity, and that's it. I really don't know about the rest, but that's all I've got. And those sorts of things, that's what works for me. That's part of what keeps me grounded.
So it sounds like you powerfully wrap up each day, and then when you wake up the following day, you become very present and you look at things in a day at a time as opposed to, stretched out much further, because all you can really impact is today, and all you can really impact is right now. That's what I took away from that.
That's true. And especially when you have your own business, your own soul, I'm a solopreneur. I don't have a company. I don't work for a company. So you live in, whatever happens, whatever momentum happens, you can't always predict. And you have to just trust the momentum you're creating. But you don't have the sense of when you move off of regular paychecks and you move into a life of entrepreneurship. It's trusting something different things, and it's not allowing yourself to cling to systems that don't exist in your life anymore, and frankly might have been false securities anyway. So that's what being on my own since 2008 has definitely taught me, to just trust what you can give back in the moment that you're in.
You mentioned self-compassion earlier. What are some examples of habits of self-compassion? It's like if there was a listener who heard you talk about self-compassion, but they don't really know how to practice that in their lives. Can you give an example of a habit of self-compassion?
I think there's a couple of things. One is just to be able to laugh at yourself and not take what you do and how you do it so seriously.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, that things aren't perfect. You can live in your evolution. You don't have to live in your perfection. It's fine. I think being willing to forgive yourself, I mentioned that, just it's okay. It's all right. Forgive others too, because we tend to freeze people. If someone did something wrong, or we didn't like them, or something happened, or events happen in our life, we freeze people around these events, and we think that's what it's all about then, and we concentrate on that. It's getting past all of that and just saying, people are people, they're going to learn, and everybody's like that chapter. Everybody's got a lot of things going on in their life, and they're learning. And that leads me to the last maybe habit there would be being willing to learn, being willing to say, okay, I got to get some feedback. I got to understand what I did there. I got to learn about what I'm doing. I got to learn about myself. And that's great, because that's a great path to be on. It's a very empowering path to be on. And that definitely builds self-compassion.
Absolutely. And I think when you are in the process of forgiving people for how they showed up in your life, for things they may have done to you, you like you said, that's the second step. And the third step is you're looking for the lesson in that. You're trying to discover, what can I learn from this? I think you can even take it a step further. And once you've forgiven them, found the lesson, you can even thank them. You can say, thank you for showing up the way you did, because, I summoned you that way, and I can learn a lesson from how you showed up in my life. So thank you. And I think when you're able to do that, you can truly move on, and you let go of that frame that you've frozen that person in time, and you can continue on with your life.
Yeah, and then you're free.
You're free, yeah. That's powerful. I want to talk now about something called an epic challenge. So I've been in an accountability group for a couple of years now, and I absolutely love it. I think accountability groups are awesome. One of the things that this group does is we talk about an epic challenge, and that's an area in our lives where we are just stuck. We're stuck in our understanding, and we need some help from outsiders to give some new perspective to help us move through these things. And I've presented a number of epic challenges to my group, and it's really been powerful for me. So, Amy, I am curious, what is a current epic challenge that you are working on? Well,
that's a good question. I think there's one that's maybe arising, and I'm starting to get up to the front door to greet it in a healthiest way possible. So, as you know, I'm working on the Lead from Center book.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about helping leaders lead with their highest intention in intense, disruptive times. And it's a massive project because I'm in year 2 of writing, because I am really connecting deep discovery of what we do inside ourselves as leaders with what's really happening in the corporate world, and trying to speak to my reader and give them some practical but powerful thoughts on how to move through it, just exactly as what I do in my practice. And so the epic challenge attached to that is obviously getting the work done and honoring what's in front of me today, which is the current work with my current clients. And then what the big challenge will be is a lot of decisions of, once that's written, is how do I want to give that back on a grander scale? And I think there's a lot of ways to go on that. And that'll be what will be some big decisions there. And I'm sort of readying myself, I guess, in a way. And one of the things I've been doing to face that challenge is a term that I use with my clients is possibility partners. I think what we need in our life when we're crossing something that is going to be probably maybe bigger than us is to enlist a lot of possibility partners in your life to help you think. And as you said, I love the idea that you're talking about going to an accountability group, because there are probably a bunch of possibility partners in that room.
Oh, yeah.
That help you see possibility and help you think critically in all dimensions of what you're doing to be able to face it. And one of the things is I realize I'm not into bigness because it's like a big deal. I really want to create something that I feel I can be in flow with, that I feel that I connect with the way that resonates with the best way I connect with the world. So I'm going to have to be very intentional about what I do in this next season as the book gets finished and what that means next. And that's sort of my epic challenge. And there's a lot of unknowns there, but I'll be getting a lot of people like you, Matthew, to help me think through it.
Oh, that's powerful. I'm like I said, I'm a big believer on bringing in other people to help lend perspective, and you are as well, as you just shared, because I think that a lot of times we can just get bogged down in what we're working on. Or a challenge that we're facing, we're just looking at it through a single perspective, looking at it through a single lens, and other people can bring a whole lot to the table, including just wisdom, experience, and can help us to, stop bumping our head against the same thing over and over. And that's what I found by opening myself up to feedback and really humbling myself to feedback, because I think from myself personally, my ego thinks it knows a whole lot. But I find that each time I humble myself and humble my ego and I recognize I really don't know anything, I grow.
Right.
And that's been an amazing process for me.
Once we can learn so much. So it's so powerful and exciting and fulfilling.
Yeah. It is. So I want to talk real quick about something from one of your blog posts that I read. This post was from a number of years ago, and you talk about what's called the "You Matter" voice. And to bring the listener up to speed, this blog really gets into some of the head games that can happen when we're doubting ourselves, and how the root of these head games is fear. And your antidote to that fear was two things. It was to embrace presence, which is the you matter voice, and passions, which is your why and action. So can you talk to me a little bit about those things, about the you matter voice and really about the why?
Well, we're amazing humans are about reading ourselves. I worked with a wonderful coach myself, you might know, Melissa Gordon. Do you know?
Yes.
Okay, so Melissa has helped me in my speaking work. She's just tremendous. And she had something very impactful to say when we started working together. She said, the minute you walk into a room, people can tell whether you're at peace with yourself or not, even before you speak.
Wow.
And so there is a great amount of inside work we need to do before we ever really have to go into a venue where we're giving ourselves back, where we need to center ourselves and find that place in ourselves to say, yeah, we're okay. I'm all right. I'm enough. And it's all right. And settle ourselves down, quiet the mind, and get into a place where you're at peace being present with yourself. So you walk in the room, you're at peace being present to the room. And that is, again, going back to what we've been talking about this entire podcast, really, is self-compassion. Is when you feel like you don't need to have anything given to you to stand you up, you can give more. And so that's part of the presence piece. And there's a lot of great work on that. There's just amazing work on that out there from other researchers and teachers and such. The passion piece is something I discovered. So there's a number of really powerful platforms out there that allow you to look at passions, and not passion as a thing that you do, but as an energy you wish to exhibit. And I've discovered some fantastic platforms that do that work. So I think that's going to become much more prominent in our working world. We didn't think we could get to people at that individualized level, but we can. So, for instance, one of my passions is I have a connector passion, being among people and connecting them and seeing those bridges built. And then I have a high passion for impact. So I'm always thinking when I'm working with my clients, I have this term, and one of them is like, what do you mean by that? It's like landing point. There's a landing point where you know that people firmly need to land somewhere to be able to make whatever change that needs to happen really happen. And that's always running in my mind when I'm working with people, is thinking about impact and how they're going to get to impact. And so there's powerful ways to get to what your passions are. And that's a good piece of work I do with my clients. But once you kind of get that language and you can get to a place where you understand how to settle yourself into being present, at peace with yourself, in a place of calm and clarity and conviction, you can, from that, arises a very strong voice that matters. You matter, the voice matters, and you can be more patient with people in the process.
I love that. This is another point in the podcast where I recommend people rewind a couple minutes, because what you just shared is powerful, powerful stuff. So, Amy, as we come to a close here, I have one final question for you. You have this really incredible journey of the work that you've done, the courage to step out and do your own thing, the learning around emotional intelligence, self-awareness, compassion. I'd like for you to share with us something that you've learned about yourself along your journey that you didn't know.
I think one of the best things I've learned over the years is that it's important to honor what creates real flow, what creates real connection for you. In other words, every single person walking on this planet has a way that they're meant to give back very, very unique value. And we can go into environments and feel like we have to just fold completely. And, we give up the journey of discovering what that is. And what I want to say to most people is, first of all, you don't actually have to extract yourself from your environment to figure that out. You can take the time to figure out what it is inside of you, what your center is, and how to connect to that meaningfully and be able to still live in the environment you're in and give back differently and be very, very powerful. And you don't necessarily have to run away to the next thing. And I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing I think I've learned is that we can create more momentum than we realize. Not by what's being given to us, but more by what we focus our energies towards.
Yeah.
And when we really get down to where we focus our energy, it's surprising. So I just say that it's about really understanding and holding on to having very clear intention was a big lesson. And trust that intention is that when you get clear on your intention, you can really create a lot of powerful momentum. even in the highest of uncertainty, the highest of challenging circumstances.
It's powerful stuff. So, Amy, I want you to have a quick opportunity to talk about your book and let us know, where we can find out more information about the book.
Well, the book is not done yet, Mr. Matthews. So we're going to get that book done this year. That you can be my accountable partner on that. But I will tell you that the book is essentially the journey of leading from center in disruptive times. So, how, and it's definitely geared, as you said, I'm gearing it towards most of what my client base is, which are organizational leaders, but certainly would apply to anyone who needs to harness a lot of intention in their life and move forward in very difficult, volatile circumstances. And we want to work through the three questions of what is your center? So what I described earlier as what that was, what you really are in the center of. So can you step back and how do you look at the environment you're really a part of and see it differently? Because once you see it differently, you change your mindset around it. And then the third thing is how to cultivate the healthiest dialogue right now, because we can have a lot of opinions, but it's very different to create dialogue. And those three questions are tightly coupled. They matter to each other. And that's what the book is about.
I love that. So if, for the listeners out there who want to learn more about you, where can they go?
Well, just go to, find Amy Balog on LinkedIn. That's a lot. There's a lot there. And then there is the website, which is spelled a little unique. It's connectionpoint.com, but it's spelled CONNEXTION.com because I took the X and made it a little guy so I could have the logo. And and essentially I'm on Twitter. I have a lot, as I'm writing, I'm actually posting on Twitter a lot of the perspective of the book. So in some ways, the Twitter feed is part of the book. So I have a handle on Twitter of ABALOG, and they can find me in all those places.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I will also include links to everything that you mentioned in the show notes for this episode, so they'll be there as well. Amy, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on this on the show with me, having a conversation, sharing your amazing wisdom. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you, Matthew.
2 quick things before you leave. First, did you know that the Having It All podcast is a part of the Fireside Network? Yep, that's right. We are one of the shows that calls Fireside Network home. That means if you ever want to listen to a show outside of iTunes or Stitcher or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, all you have to do is visit www.firesidenetwork.com/having it all. From there, you can access all of the episodes, see the show notes, learn about my guests, and more. Second, we also have a standalone website for Having It All, where you can learn about me, discover how we further our mission at Having It All, and pick up some free content around creating your ideal life and just experiencing life more powerfully. You can find that at www.havingitall.co. Again, that's www.havingitall.co. Thanks again for listening to the show. Here's to you having it all.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.